Hey guys, today we're taking a trip back in time. Literally, I'm here in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and talk about nostalgia. This is what the nostalgic neighborhood is all about. You might remember this 26-inch GT Performer from one of my earlier videos where I talked about how growing up in this neighborhood, my three best friends, they all had really nice bikes, a Mongoose, a Redline, and a GT Pro Performer. And then I rode around on a Huffy, and I always dreamed of having a GT Performer, but never got around to getting one until a couple of years ago when I got the idea to pick up this bike and then come back to my childhood stomping grounds to ride it around and kind of relive some of those adventures. But this video isn't just about the GT Performer, it's about the neighborhood that I grew up in, where we learned to ride bikes and skateboards, where we played games and we went on adventures back in the woods. And I really hope that this trip down memory lane reminds you of some of your own childhood adventures. Back in the day, if you wanted to find out where your friends were, you just rode up and down the street until you found a big pile of bikes in someone's front yard. And that meant that they were probably inside playing Atari, watching cartoons, or maybe battling it out with Hot Wheels or G.I. Joe guys. Did you have that same signal in your neighborhood where a pile of bikes meant that something fun was going on inside? This 26-inch GT Performer is like a time machine for me. Back in the day, the 20-inch GT Pro Performer was one of the bikes that I dreamed of. I actually dreamed of owning two bikes. One was the GT Performer and the other was the Hutch Trickstar. The Trickstar was completely without question. It was a total pipe dream. The GT Performer was still on the pricey side, but it felt just a little bit more within reach. Eventually, I convinced my dad to upgrade my old Huffy, but instead of a Pro Performer, I ended up getting a Dyno Detour because it was quite a bit cheaper. It was still a great bike, definitely more of an entry-level option compared to those higher-end dream bikes. I vividly remember the day I got that bike. I was literally right here with my friends when I saw the UPS truck drive by, and the driver yelled out the window, "Hey, I just dropped off a bike at your house. You should go check it out." And man, I hopped on that Huffy, and I don't think I ever pedaled that bike so fast in my life. Now, as an adult with adult money, I've finally been able to make those dreams come true. I've got this 26-inch GT Performer, and even though it's the bigger version, it brings back all those same feelings from back then. It's funny how a bike can make you feel just like a kid again, just cruising around, no worries, no plans, just the freedom to ride. This is the street that I grew up on. Back then it seemed so much bigger. We had this cul-de-sac here where we would ride our big wheels, we'd play kickball, we'd learn to ride our bikes and skateboards, and eventually we found our freedom by riding our bikes deeper into the subdivision. In the summer we'd leave in the morning and be gone all day. It's crazy to think that our parents didn't really know what we were up to, but they trusted that we'd be okay. As long as I was back home by the time the street light turned on, everything was good. Were your parents the same way, just trusting you to come back home safe and sound before dark? When I was really little, I wasn't allowed to go any further than this intersection right here, and so this became sort of like a meeting ground for kids in different parts of the neighborhood where we could all kind of congregate. And then over here on this hill, this was the first big hill that I ever bombed on my skateboard, and the first time I went down, I ate it big time and had a huge case of road rash. And then over here in this spot was the first time that I ever seriously crashed on my bike, and I broke my wrist. I was trying to do some kind of no-handed freestyle trick and it just went wrong, so that wasn't fun. But do you guys remember what your first epic crash or fall on your skateboard was? It's funny that I have such vivid memories of my first crashes. If you've got any stories about yours, leave them down in the comments. And then over here, before this house was built, this whole hill over here was just dirt. It was full of actually little dirt mounds. And when we were really little, we would play war and tag and just bring our action figures and stuff out in here. And then as we got older, we would ride our bikes up and down. We'd make little tracks and stuff. It was a lot of fun. We called this spot the Dirt Hills. I'm sure you guys probably had a spot similar to this in your neighborhood, maybe an open construction site or something, but these are where some of my favorite memories are, just right down the street from my house. We used to have so much fun going up and down this hill here. Yeah, I can see why I ate it on the skateboard and why I got such bad road rash. Oh man, this brings back such great memories. So the neighborhood has changed quite a bit, so I'll spare you the rest of the details. But back behind these houses back here was a ravine with a creek on it that went back for miles and miles, and we would spend hours exploring that creek and heading deep into the woods. Did you have a spot like that where you could just wander and lose track of time? Okay, so here's what I've really been looking forward to over the last couple of years, is taking the 26-inch Performer on one of the adventures that we did as kids, and that's riding up to the candy store. All right, let's leave a little something from our visit here. Okay, so when we got to be in about the 3rd or 4th grade, we were allowed to leave the neighborhood and venture across town. And one of our favorite things would be to ride our bikes up to the gas station or this local little, I don't know, it's kind of like a dime store, a drugstore called Kleins, and we'd go up there and get candy and trading cards. So I'm gonna head that direction. I know the building's it's closed. I think the building's still there, so we'll go check it out. And then over here, coincidentally, is where I went to the 7th grade. We ended up moving to Virginia halfway through the 7th grade, but this was my junior high. Pretty cool. Candy store is gonna be up here on the left, at least where it would have been. Okay, so we made it to the little drugstore. It's out of business, Kleins. It's now some sort of like retail consignment shop. But yeah, back in the day, we'd ride our bikes up here. We'd leave them just outside the door and go inside. And they had a great selection of candy and trading cards. And it's amazing that for just a couple of bucks, you could fill up a little bag of candy and maybe a couple of packs of cards. Man, I got so many packs of Garbage Pail Kids here. It's pretty crazy. And yeah, it's wild to think that such a small place can have such a big impact, like big memories in our lives. So yeah, you can't get candy here anymore, but I got some retro candy here just to help with the nostalgia. But yeah, back in the day, we would fill up our bags and then we would wrap it around the handlebar grip right here and then head to the park to go eat it. Okay, so the park is still here, but the picnic table and the playground are long gone. We'd stop here on our way back to open up our packs of cards and eat some candy. And man, those were some of my best memories, just hanging out, swapping cards and seeing who got the best pulls. Did you collect trading cards back when you were a kid? Or maybe you had a favorite candy that you couldn't get enough of? What was your favorite? For me, I absolutely loved Tart and Tinies, especially when they came in those little boxes. And then Big League Chew, of course. What's your most nostalgic candy? Let me know down in the comments. Oh, Wooly Willy, I love this one. Okay, so I've got a lot more riding and exploring to do. I'll chime in with just a couple more stories that might jog some of your own childhood memories, but for the most part, for the sake of time, I'll be keeping the rest of the ride to myself. Man, I can only imagine how many times I rode my bike up and down this sidewalk on my way to and from school every day. Okay, so one of the cool things about growing up in a small town is that you probably walked or rode your bike to school. And I was in one of those weird situations where I was too close for the bus, but it was just far enough that it made for a really long walk, but it was perfect for bike rides. I rode my bike to school on most days, and I can only imagine how many hundreds and hundreds of times that I rode up and down these sidewalks on my way to and from school. And my old elementary school building is now some sort of administrative office, but back in the day, the bike racks were right here, and I had vivid memories of every morning getting my bike locked up. I can't believe it's been 40 years now. Man, just time sure does fly. Okay, one last stop before we close out the video. Behind me is the local shopping center. There used to be an A&P grocery store, and then next to it was a pharmacy, and inside the pharmacy they had all the BMX magazines, and I vividly remember tagging along with my mom just to check them out, and every now and then I'd be able to convince her to let me buy one. Okay, and here it is. This was the first little set of stairs that we would learn to jump down on our skateboards and on our bikes. Man, this brings back some great memories. We'd go over to McDonald's and get some food, sit here and eat it, and then just spend our time hanging out here on these steps. It's funny that riding around these places makes them feel much smaller, but my memories are still just as big. I think it's important to hold on to those feelings of freedom and adventure. Maybe that's why I love riding so much. It's a way to keep that part of me still alive. If you've ever felt like reconnecting with those old childhood memories, maybe it's time to pick up an old hobby or revisit your old neighborhood. You never know what you might discover. Thanks for coming along on this ride with me. I hope it brought back some memories of your own. If it did, let me know down in the comments of what some of your favorite neighborhood adventures that you went on as a kid. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more trips down memory lane, and then we'll see you in the next video.